Kwam Yasharal, arise to the nation of Israel, so-called blacks, Hispanics, and Native Americans. A greeting to the 12 tribes which are scattered abroad. Korash Allah, and thank you for tuning in to another Sons of Isaac Israelite congregation feast day, right? So the feast day that we're going into now, we just we're celebrating the destruction of Nicanor yesterday, and now we're in the first day of the feast of Purim. So we're just going to go into a little bit of the history and the background of Purim, okay? And of course, this is a memorial. It's definitely a celebration. This is a time for us to feast and to gather together and you know share portions one with another. All right, on this beautiful evening of Purim. Okay, so to my brothers and sisters on the East Coast, Shalom, and definitely thank you for tuning in, and also have you a beautiful feast of Purim. All right. So of course, let's open up to the book of Esther, chapter 1. So we're going to go into the book of Esther right now, chapter 1, and we're going to start at verse 1, and we're going to get just a little history behind Purim itself. Okay. So now in the book of Esther, verse 1, and it reads, "And it came to pass in the days of Ahasuerus, this is Ahasuerus which reigned from India even unto Ethiopia, over 127 provinces." So now this Ahasuerus, right? We all want to know who Ahasuerus is. Um, where does he come from, so on and so forth, right? But just in brief, you know, just to talk about him a little bit, this Ahasuerus, right? He became king of Persia around 486 BCE. All right, so um, he is the basically one of the greatest kings of the Persians and Medes. All right, that's also in the prophesied in the book of Daniel. We'll get that a little bit later. All right, but just to explain a little bit about him, he's one of the greatest kings of Persia, of the Persians and Medes. The extent of his empire, it basically stretched from what we know as it says here, from India unto Ethiopia, right? But it also stretched a little bit further than that. All right. He also conquered the provinces of what we know as Greece. All right. That's why when you look at the movies like 300, and 300 Rise of an Empire, you'll see that the Persians and the Medes, they conquered Greece. Okay. They destroyed Athens. They conquered, they conquered. Okay. So now let's continue reading on. So then, and that's also something you're also going to notice about uh, this Ahasuerus, right? He also is the husband of a very important figure that we're going to read about in this exact history. All right, who is one of our ancestors, and of course her name is Esther. All right, so now let's continue reading. So it says, "Now it came to pass in the days of Ahasuerus, this is Ahasuerus, which reigned from India even unto Ethiopia, over 127 provinces, that in those days when the king Ahasuerus sat on the throne of his kingdom, which was in Shushan the palace, in the third year of his reign, he made a feast unto all his princes and his servants, the power of Persia and Media, the nobles and the princes of the provinces being before him." So he was going to have this great and this magnificent feast, right? For all of the princes of Persia and of Media. All right. So now it says, when he showed the riches of his glorious kingdom and the honor of his excellent majesty, many days, even 100 and fourscore days, right? So 180 days, Ahasuerus was showing, just how great the extent of his empire was. All right. So to all of the nobles and the princes and so on and so forth, right? So he's showing how powerful, he actually was, right? So we saw in the movie, right, he had this God complex about himself, all right? So now let's read on. And it says, and in these days were, excuse me, and when these days were expired, the king made a feast unto all the people that were present in Shushan the palace, both unto great and small 7 days in the court of the garden of the king's palace. So now he also made a feast for the people, the common people. All right. So it says, where where were white and green and blue hanging fastened with cords of fine linen and purple and pillars of marble. So this was just the beauty of, of how everything was basically set up, all right? How he had everything set up. And it says the beds were of gold and silver upon a pavement of red and blue and white and black and marble. All right. And he says, and they gave them drink in vessels of gold, the vessels being diverse one from another, and royal wine in abundance according to the state of the king. Look at that. So this is just how illustrious, man, this feast was, man, and how he was presenting it to everybody. So he's basically showing off, all right, his glory and his power. Okay. So now let's read on. So then it says, and they gave them, read verse 8, and the drinking was according to the law. None did compel, for so the king had appointed to all the officers of his house that they should do according to every man's pleasure. Right. Also, Vashti, the queen, made a feast for the women in the royal house which belonged to King Ahasuerus. So you'll see that the queen, she had a feast for the women. All right. And it says, on the seventh day, when the heart of the king was merry with wine, he commanded Mehuman, Bislath, Harbna, Bigat, and Abagtha, Zethar, and Carcass, the seven chamberlains that served in the presence of Ahasuerus the king, to bring Vashti the queen before the king with the crown royal, to show the people and the princes her beauty, for she was fair to look on. Show off his wife, all right, and how beautiful she was, okay? But Queen Vashti refused to come at the king's commandment by his chamberlains. Therefore was the king very wroth in his anger, burnt in him. Right. So of course he was silently upset, right? Very angry with his wife, all right, the queen, because she disobeyed the order that which he had gave his chamberlains, right? He sent his chamberlains to make her come forth, right? So let's read on. Then the king wise men which knew the times, for so was the king's manner towards all that knew law and judgment. And the next unto him was Karshina, Shithar, Tarshish, Mishra, Mish, and Manukan, the seven princes of Persia and Media, which saw the king's face and which sat the first in the kingdom, right? So these were all of the higher ups, all right, that sat with the face, right? Remember, it said he was angry, all right. So by him being upset, he didn't show it, you know what I'm saying, to everybody else, expression on his face like he, all right. So now let's read on. Verse we do unto Queen Vashti according to the law, because she hath not performed the commandment of the king Ahasuerus by the chamberlains. So they trying to figure out, what shall we do with this woman? What are we going to do with her because she disobeyed the commandment of the king? All right. And you're going to see that this right here, what the queen did, man, could have a very powerful effect, you know, on this kingdom, right? For one reason, we're going to find out. So it says, and Menucham answered before the king and the princes, Vashti the queen hath not done wrong to the king only, but to also all the princes and to all the people that are in all the provinces of King Ahasuerus. For this deed of the queen shall come abroad unto all women, so that they shall despise their husbands in their eyes, When it shall be reported, the king Ahasuerus commanded Vashti the queen to be brought in before him, but she came not. So now you see that this is talking about the disobedience of the queen, right? And how she did not come. So now because she didn't come, right, this could sit there and literally empower women to disobey their husbands. You see that? So this is why they had to sit down and counsel about this situation, because if they did not and they allowed this to go on, remember they told them the repercussions of what this could actually do. It could harm the entire kingdom. So the wives of the princes, they're respecting them. Then it'll trickle on down to the people. You see that? Just like it does, just like here in America, right? You see the women here in America, they don't respect their husbands for nothing. You see that? Unless the woman is actually taught, to respect her husband. But you see, for the most part, man, women don't. They don't care. All right, what their husbands tell them and what they say. You see that? So I remember I was listening to a recorded. I was listening to a recording, right, with Mel Gibson and his wife. They were on the phone. She recorded the conversation. He said that you make my You don't listen to me. You want to dress like a whore. I don't like that. I want you to change the way you're dressing. There's nothing wrong with the way I dress. He was like, no, your dress is too tight. And I don't like that. Because you're showing to everybody what's mine. So that's how Mel Gibson was coming at his wife, right? So, and then you just think about it, man, you be like, well, dang, that's how the mentality a lot of women, that's how the mentality are, especially black women. You can't tell them nothing. Why? Because you tell a black woman, girl, you showing too much skin. They look at you like you stupid. You see that? But now you see that they put it all in the media and in the TV, right? How should a woman dress? How should a woman be? She should be a whore before everybody. So just now, how does this affect your kingdom now? It causes it to fall into decay, right? Just like America, because now you're pushing and promoting whoredom. And guess what? The elite don't care about that here in America, because America is it's a fake kingdom anyway. It's just a corporation. It's just a business, right? So we know that Esau's full kingdom, how he operates, man, it's over there in Europe. All right. Because some of the happiest places on earth, man, some of the best places are over there in Europe right now, man. Like I said, America is just a corporation, it's the business to them. All right. But nonetheless, so going back to the book of Esther, right? So they went into so they said, man, this could have an adverse effect, man, on the entire kingdom. Households could be destroyed because of what the queen just did. So now we have to do something about it. Well, let's find out what they did about the situation. All right. So now we're gonna read verse 18. It says, likewise shall the ladies of Persia and Media say this day unto all the kings princes which have heard of the deed of the queen, thus shall there arise too much contempt and wrath. So this is what they were worried, right? Because they understood, man, what goes on in the leadership will affect the entire people. All right. And that principle carries down into every aspect, man, from the church, from the church going down to the, what I'm saying, the leadership board, all the way down to the people, man. The pastor sitting there committing adultery. Then you already know, man, the adulteries are prevalent throughout the congregation too. Fornication and all of that. What's going on? All right. So it always has a very powerful effect. Okay. So this is why they're saying we have to correct this right now. This is an issue that cannot go unchecked. We have to make sure that this is taken care of. All right. So now it says, if it please the queen, if it please the king, let there go a royal commandment from him, and let it be written among the laws of the Persians and the Medes. So they took their laws very seriously, all right, because these were the laws that bound their kingdoms together. So it says that it be not altered, that Vashti come no more before the king Ahasuerus, and let the king give her royal estate unto another that is better than she. So basically, they're saying divorce her behind. All right, get rid of her and replace her with another woman that is better than her. So now it says, and when the king's decree which he shall make shall be published throughout all his empire, for it is great, all the wives shall give to their husbands honor, both to great and small. So then, so then they saying, well, once this is done and is published, right? Then we're gonna make sure that all of the women, right, reverence and honor their husbands. You see, so just like my brother, we was in the class, man, before, we was talking about this, and he was explaining, man, like, shoot, you don't see no East Indian women sitting there disrespecting, disrespecting. See that, do you? You don't see them sitting there, man, dishonoring their husbands like that. They take it very seriously. They take marriage very seriously. They take the household very seriously. You see that? So it stems all the way back, man, to their ancestors and the decrees that they set forth, right? So it shows you, man, that structure was still amongst their nation even to this very day. That they don't disrespect their husbands, they make sure that they honor them, so on and so forth, right? You don't hear about East Indian women being whores and all of that stuff, man, and jumping from man to man. Don't get me wrong, there's prostitution among them, all right? That's off top. Whenever there's poverty, you have prostitution, all of that. But you don't see it heavily prevalent like you do here in America. All right. So remember, America is what is called the Great Horde. So of course, whoredom is promoted here. All right, especially the whoredom of the woman. So now let's read on. So it says, verse 21, and saying, please the king. So and the saying pleased the king and the princes, and the king did according to the words of Manukan. For he sent letters into all the king's provinces, into every province according to the writing thereof, right? So wherever there was a different language, they translated it and they sent it out. So then it says, and to every people after their language, that every man should bear rule of his own house, in his own house, and that it should be published according to the language of every people. So they made sure that this went to every people. All right. And remember, that goes back in our law, right? And in our ancient text, right, from the First Corinthians chapter 11 and verse 3, right? Showing you the order of the household, going all the way back to, to the origin, right? In the book of Genesis, chapter 3 and verse 16, right? Well, the Lord said, man, thy desire shall be unto thy husband, and he shall rule over thee. You see that? So the nations, they've had these laws. All right. They've had the laws of the Most High, man. It's just many of those laws they began to alter and change, man, to suit their people and their nation. All right. Okay. And they just left out the Most High at that point. All right. So because the Most High talks about that in the book of Ezekiel, all right, how the nations changed the Lord's statutes. Okay. So now let's jump down to chapter 2. Let's see what's going on now. So it says, after these things, when the wrath of King Ahasuerus was appeased, he remembered Vashti and what she had done and what was decreed against her. Then said the king's servants to that ministered unto him, let there be fair young virgins sought for the king, right? So they just didn't seek any old type of woman, right? They said they sought virgins for the king, okay? And it says, and let the king appoint officers in all the provinces of his kingdom, that they may gather together all the fair young virgins unto Shushan, the palace to the house of the women, unto the custody of Higi, the king's chamberlain, keeper of the women, and let their things for purification be given to them, right? So now they sought for all of these young, beautiful virgins, right, all throughout the kingdom. They brought them to Shushan, right? And then, of course, the chamberlain, he would then give these women, right, who were selected as the best out of all of the provinces, he would give them things for purification. All right. He would give them purifying products for themselves. Okay. Because now this woman, she has to represent herself, in a very pure and clean manner, right? So remember, just because they were heathen, man, don't mean that they didn't keep. They had a certain mannerism about themselves that they had to keep themselves clean. All right, we know that they spiritually defile themselves through, idol worship and so on and so forth, and their rituals that they perform. But every nation still had their own way of purifying themselves. Okay, so now, but then check this out. But check this out, and this is something that my brother had brought out, man, earlier. That's very important. We're going to read about it. So it says, and let the maiden which pleaseth the king be queen instead of Vashti. And the thing pleased the king, and he did so. All right. So the thing pleased the king, and he did so. All right. So now let's read on. So it says, now in Shushan the palace, there was a certain Jew whose name was Mordecai, the son of Jerah, the son of Shimei, the son of Kish, a Benjamite. Right. Mordecai's lineage goes all the way back to who? Saul. All right. So now it says, who had been carried away from captivity, which had been carried away with Jeconiah, king of Judah, whom Nebuchadnezzar, the king of Babylon, had carried away. So that's when Mordecai was carried away. He was carried away during the reign of Jeconiah. All right, or Coniah. So that's the time he was carried away. So it says, and that was before 586. All right, it's probably about like 588 BC. He was carried away around that time. So now he says, and he brought up Hadassah, that is Esther, his uncle's daughter, for she had neither father nor mother, and the maid was fair and beautiful, whom Mordecai, when her father and mother were dead, took for his own daughter. So we see that Mordecai basically raised Esther as his own daughter after his mother and his father, after her mother and father were basically, they had died, all right, from whatever reason, probably from the captivity. Okay. So both of her parents were dead, and Mordecai took the responsibility to raise her, all right, as his own daughter. All right. So just it shows you also, man, how our nation should also operate, man. So a family member or a loved one dies, then of course, then you have other family members to help, to help build up that child and develop that child. All right. So this is what Mordecai did. Okay, but her name originally was Hadassah. All right, I believe, which means myrtle tree. Okay, so now it says, verse 8, so it came to pass, when the king's commandment and his decree was heard, and when many maidens were gathered together unto Shushan the palace, to the custody of Haggai, that Esther was brought also unto the king's house, to the custody of Haggai, the keeper of the women. And the maiden pleased him, and she obtained kindness of him, and he speedily gave her the things of purification with such things as belonged to her, right? So she quickly gained favor, all right? Not only because of her beauty, not only because not only because she was I guess beautiful and well favored, right? But because of her behavior, her attitude, right? She didn't present herself as just some low life woman, all right? Some ghetto old fashioned woman, right? She was on an entirely different level, all right? So now it says, and he says he quickly gave her the things of the purification, right? So now it says, now let's read on. So it says, and the maiden pleased him, and she obtained kindness of him, and he was speedily gave her the things for purification with such things as belonged to her, and 7 maidens which were meet to be given to her. Right. So he also gave her 7 maidens. Check that out. All right. Those were like her assistants. So then it says, out of the king's house, and he preferred her and her children to the best place of the house of women. So I'm talking about, he loved this girl so much that he just basically said, I'm gonna hook you up. You got the maidens of the king's house, and I'm gonna give you the best place for the women here. All right. So you see how the Most High Man is working in Esther's favor, right? But he's setting her up for something. Okay. So now it says, Esther had not showed her people nor her kindred, For Mordecai had charged her that she should not show it. So he told her, so Mordecai told Esther, he was like, don't tell them that you're a Israelite. Don't let them know that you're Hebrew. All right. So this is what he charged her with. He wanted her to conceal her identity. All right. And this is for great reason as well. Okay. And we'll understand as the story unfolds, then we'll understand why he told her to hide or conceal her identity. And it's going to play in her favor later on. So then it says, and Mordecai walked every day before the court of the women's house to know how Esther did and to what should become of her. So he made sure that he checked on Esther, man, every day. All right, to make sure if she was all right, make sure she was doing what she was supposed to be doing. Okay, just as a father would his daughter. All right. So it says, and every maid turn was come to go into the king Ahasuerus after that she months, check that out, 12 months according to the manner of women, for so were the days of their purification accomplished to with 6 months with oil of myrrh and 6 months with sweet oil with other things for the purifying of the women. Now check that out. You see that? So now, what did we just get from that? We just got from that the king of Ahasuerus just didn't go up into this woman, right? Oh, she's beautiful, this and the third, right? But it took literally a year. You see that for the woman to basically purify herself. A
But it
year.
probably took longer than a year for him to even touch her. 'Cause it seems like she was there for a year, along with other women,
Right, but
and he was testing.
right. But we're looking at the purification process for the woman, right? How long should it be for a woman before she even thinks about taking on a man? I mean, taking on a husband.
It should be
She
longer
should
than that.
be, she should basically be waiting a year or over a year, all right, or longer, okay, to purify herself. Because when you look at a woman that's coming out of the world, right, you looking at all of the men that she's been with, right? The different types of DNA that she's obtained over the years. You see what I'm saying? So you want to make sure that the woman that you're dealing with is basically is pure, all right, or purified within her spirit and within her body. Okay. So that means that woman, she has to go almost a year, 2 years, 3 years, man, untouched, right? To basically purify herself completely of those wicked, wicked spirits and demons, man, that she have. Let herself grow more in the spirit, man. But you see, brothers don't give a damn about that, but they just jump into a woman's drawers just like it's nothing. All right. And then lie to these sisters, man, and then just be like, whatever. Then tell them, oh, we're not married, it was just fornication. You can go. You see the evils of that? So that's why it's important, man, for sisters, man, to take these things, these accounts very seriously. All right. To know and understand, man, how you should purify yourself. It says she was purifying herself with oils and sweet smells. All right. Before the king would even before the king would even deal with these women, they had to purify themselves for over a year. You see that? So he just didn't go up in them and all of that. They went through a purification process, and it's the same thing that every woman in the knowledge, man, should also go through. All right. So now it says, let's read on. And it says, then thus came every maiden unto the king. So after that year, it said, thus came every maiden unto the king, right? So then it says, whatsoever she desired was given her to go with her out of the house of the women unto the king's house. In the evening she went, and on the morrow she returned to the second house of the women, to the custody of Shaazgaz, the king's chamberlain, which kept the concubines. So came in unto the king, she came into the king no more, except the king delighted in her, and that she were called by name. So you see, after she went to the king house, maybe for a formal dinner or whatnot, introduction, you know what I mean? He met with all of these women, and then he would basically go through the process of selection, right? So it says she seen the king no more, right? Unless the king delighted in her, or if what? if she was called by name. You see that? So it just wasn't no hooking up on the side and all of that stuff, man. He was a very busy man. Okay. So let's read on. So then it says, and now, when the daughter of Abiel, the uncle of Mordecai, who had taken her for his daughter, was come to go in unto the king, she required nothing but what Hegai, the king's chamberlain, the keeper of the women, appointed. And Esther obtained favor in the sight of all them that looked upon her. So look at that. It says that Esther obtained favor in the sight of all them that saw her. So when she walked in, she was just like everybody was like, wow. You see that? So it could have been it just not only from her beauty, but from from her words, you know what I mean? All of that stuff. All right. So she carried herself properly. So it says Esther was taken unto King Ahasuerus in his royal house in the 10th month, which is the month Tebeth, in the 7th year of his reign. It says, and the king loved Esther above all the women, and she obtained grace and favor in his sight more than all the virgins, so that he set the royal crown upon her head. So once Esther came into it, that was it. She was the one who he selected. All right. It was all over. All of the other virgins, yeah, they could have been beautiful, but Esther was better. He loved her. All right. Let's find out a little bit, man, what made Ahasuerus fall for Esther. You know what I mean? Because you have to understand the thing about an Israelite woman. The Israelite woman when she is morally correct and righteous within herself. It's like there's no other woman in the world that can delight you more than an Israelite woman. You understand? We're not talking about no white woman, no Asian woman. We're not talking about no African Hamitic woman. We're talking about a Israelite woman, all right, in her righteousness, all right, in her virginity, okay. So real quick, let me see if I get the scripture in the book of Judith. What gave Judith favor in the sight of all the men that were around Hello Furnace. All right. Let me see if I can get the scripture. Hold on, give me a second. Because it said that she was witty with her words. All right. She was very beautiful. Okay. So now this is in the book of Esther, chapter 11 and verse 23. All right. We're going to read this. And it says, and now thou art both beautiful in thy countenance and witty with thy words. Surely, if thou do as thou hast spoken, thy God shall be my God, and thou shalt dwell in the house of King Nebuchadnezzar, and thou shalt be renowned throughout the whole earth. You see that? So it says that. So this is what Hello Furnace was telling, telling Judith. All right. So he says, you witty with your words. All right. So meaning that she had a way of explaining things and how she was able to expound, using her wisdom. All right. To this men of high power. So you see how our sisters were when they were well instructed. All right. So now let's stay in the Apocrypha. Let's go to the book of Ecclesiasticus. Chapter 26. Ecclesiasticus chapter 26. Daddy, help. Daddy, Daddy. 6 and let's get verse 1. All right. So it says, blessed is the man that hath a virtuous wife, for the number of his days shall be double. All right. So you see, a man is blessed when he has a woman that is virtuous, right? So you can go to chapter 31 and see what a virtuous woman does. All right. How a virtuous woman is supposed to act. All right. All of the characteristics of a virtuous woman. All right. A virtuous wife. It says, a virtuous woman, in verse 2, a virtuous woman, it rejoiceth her husband, and he shall fulfill the years of his life in peace. So no strife, no, you know what I'm saying? Uh, he ain't got to worry about arguing with his wife all the time or anything like that. His years shall be filled with peace. And it says, a good wife is the portion which shall be given unto him that fear the Lord. All right. So that's all I really wanted right there. So it goes to show you the type of woman that she was. Oh, you know what? Let me drop down. I'm gonna drop down and read verse 13. So it says, the grace of a wife delighteth her husband, and her discretion will fatten his bones. Silent and loving woman is a gift of the Lord, and there is nothing so much worth as a mind well instructed. You see that? So this is the type of woman, Esther was, or she was raised to be. All right, she wasn't raised to be no ghetto hood type of chick, man. That's not how Israelite men, you know what I'm saying, or women raised their children unless they were in wickedness, right? But we raised righteous men and righteous women. And it says in verse 15, a shamefaced and faithful woman is a double grace, and her content mind cannot be valued. Look at that. So a woman that is has a excellent level of humility about herself. She's faithful, man, meaning she's loyal to her husband. There's nothing like it, man. A woman that has a content mind, all right, meaning she's not being really greedy or anything like that. Okay, she's content with what you give her. All right. So let's go back to the book of Esther now. So this was the type of woman. There are many more. There are many other scriptures, man, to show the example of the type of woman that Esther was. All right, but I was just showing, man, King Ahasuerus favored her. Why the Chamberlains, favored Esther so much. All right, because of the type of woman, the way she was raised. All right, and Mordecai raised her to be a virtuous woman. Okay. So now it says in verse 18. So so in verse 17, Esther was made queen. All right. It says in verse 18, then the king made a great feast unto all the princes and his servants, even Esther's feast. And he made to the provinces and gave gifts according to the state of the king. And when the virgins were gathered together the second time, then Mordecai king's gate. Esther had not yet shown her kindred nor as Mordecai. So she was very obedient to Mordecai. She didn't tell him her nationality or whatnot. All right. So it says, for Esther did the commandment of Mordecai like as when she was brought up with him. Okay. So she obeyed him. So now down. Well, actually, let's continue reading. In those days, while Mordecai sat in the king's gate, two of the king's Bigthan and Terush of those which kept the door were wroth and sought to hands on King Ahasuerus. And the thing was, I, who told it unto Esther the queen, certified the king thereof in Mordecai's name. All right. So basically, you had two of the king's doormen that wanted him dead, and you know, he basically told a message to the king. All right. So now it says, and when inquisition was, of the matter, it was found out. Therefore, they were both hanged on a tree, and it was written in the book of the Chronicles before the king. So he made note of this. All right, that these two men were trying to kill him. Okay. So just to let you guys know, you know what I'm saying, just a little bit about Esther. So even Esther tells you herself, man, she did not care to be queen. She did not care about, the state of being a ruler or anything like that. All she wanted to do was serve Yah. All right. So real quick, let's go back to the Apocrypha and let's get the book of Esther. Okay. Let's get the book of Esther in the Apocrypha. And I want to get excuse me, I want to get chapter 14, all right, and I want to read verse 1. So this is when Esther, right, before she went into before she had went to Ahasuerus, right, to let him know that Haman was about to exterminate the Jews, right? She basically she basically sent up her prayers, right? And this was one of the prayers that she sent up unto the king, okay? I mean unto the most high. So it says, Queen Esther also being in fear of death resorted unto the Lord and laid away her glorious apparel and put on garments of anguish and mourning. And instead of precious ointments, she covered her head with ash and dung, and she humbled her body greatly. All the palace and all the places of her body were filled with her torn hair. And she prayed unto the Lord God of Israel, saying, O Lord, O my Lord, thou only art our king. Help me, desolate woman, which have no helper but thee. For in my danger I have been hidden. For my youth up I have heard in the tribe of my family that thou, O Lord, tookest Israel from among the people and our fathers from all their predecessors for a perpetual inheritance. And thou hast performed whatsoever thou didst promise them. And now we have sinned before thee, therefore hast thou given us into the hands of our enemies, because we worship their gods, O Lord, thou art righteous. Nevertheless, it satisfies me not that we are in bitter captivity, but they have stricken hands with their idols, that they will abolish the thing that thou with thy mouth hath ordained, and destroy thine inheritance, and stop the mouth of them that praise thee, and quench the glory of thy house and of thine altar, and open the mouth of the heathen that set forth the praise of the idol, and to magnify a fleshly king forever. O Lord, give not thy scepter unto them that be nothing, and let them not laugh at our fall, but turn their device upon themselves, and make him an example that hath begun this against us. Remember thyself and make thyself known in time of our affliction, and give me boldness, O King of the nations and Lord of all power. Give me eloquent speech in my mouth before the lion. Turn his heart to hate him that fighteth against us, that there may be an end of him, and of all that are like-minded to him. But deliver us with thine hand, and help me that am desolate, and which have no helper but thee. Thou knowest all things, O Lord, that I hate the glory of the unrighteous, and abhor the bed of the uncircumcised, and of all the heathen. Thou knowest my necessity, for I arbor the sign of my high estate, which is upon my head in the days wherein I showed myself, and that I abhorred it as a minstrel's rag, that I wear it not when I am in private by myself, and that thine handmaid hath not eaten at Amon's table, and that I have not greatly esteemed the king's feast, nor drunk the wine of the drink offerings. Neither had thine handmaid any joy since the day that I was brought hither to this present. But in thee, O Lord God of Abraham, O thou mighty God above all, hear the voice of the forlorn, and deliver us out of the hands of the mischievous, and deliver me out of my fear. Look at that. You see how powerful that prayer was? You see Esther? This is what she prayed for. All right. So as she showed you, man, she didn't delight in what, the position that she was in. But she understood she was in this position for a reason, all right, to help her people. So that's why she had to pray to our Father, which is in heaven, and to let him know to help us. That's why she, man, it's powerful, man, because she showed she had it all. She had everything a woman could ever ask for, and she did not want it. She despised it. But do you think this is the mentality of our women today? Absolutely not. But these are the type of examples, man, that have to be brought out, about the mentality and the mind state of real powerful women. All right. So you could say Esther came from rags to riches, and she really didn't care about it. She didn't even drink the wine or the drink offerings that they were sitting there when they was toasting their chalices. She didn't care about that. She didn't care about the glorious apparel that she received. She loved the Most High. That's why she didn't partake in those idolatrous things that they were doing. All right. That's why she said in private, I don't even wear the crown. I don't even care to wear it because she understands who her king is. Okay. But that's the beautiful thing. So now the plot thickens. Let's go back to the book of Esther and let's pick it up in chapter 3. All right. So now let's read this. It says, after these things did King Ahasuerus promote Haman, the son of Hammedatha, the Agagite, and advance him, and set his seat above all the princes that were with him. So as you can see, uh, Haman was an Edomite. All right. So he was the son of Hammedatha, the Agagite. All right. So King Ahasuerus advanced him and set him above. So basically, Haman was like the second in command. So basically, he was like his chief visor. All right. Same position, say for instance, that Joseph was in. You see that? So so he was set above, all of the princes. All right. So it says, and all the king's servants that were in the king's gate bowed and reverenced Haman, for the king had said it concerning him. But Mordecai bowed not, nor did him reverence. So Mordecai did not bow to him whatsoever. Everybody else bowed, at this white man, right? But Mordecai did not. And it wasn't an issue of color whatsoever, man. But remember, it's about who your father is. And Mordecai understood who his father was, right? And who his fathers were. Okay. So we can go all the way back to the history, man, in the book of Samuel, First Samuel, Genesis, Exodus, and see who Haman was related to. All right. So it says that he was an Agagite. So when you go back to the book of Genesis, chapter 36, you'll read that I believe Eliphaz, had a concubine and he begat Amalek or something like that. All right. So we see that it goes back, it goes way deeper, man, than what we think. All right. Dealing with, Israel and Esau. Okay. So now, so now you see Mordecai did not bow down to him, right? So when we go back and read the history in First Samuel, remember the Lord had gave the decree to Samuel to tell Saul to go and destroy Amalek completely. But what did Saul do? Saul did not destroy Amalek completely. He destroyed a great portion of the people, but he kept the king alive, and he brought many of the animals back to try to sacrifice. You see that? Because he wanted his men to take the spoil of war, and he was listening to them. Why are we not taking the spoil of war? Why not? Look at all of this. We could take all of this for ourselves. So man, he became a respecter of the persons of those who were with him. Instead of fearing the Lord and saying, no, we got to destroy every single last thing that the Lord told me to destroy. You see that? But he didn't do that. All right. So now we see that this years down the line, man, this is affecting us by Saul, the decision that Mordecai's forefather made by allowing King Agag to live. So remember, that he had seed that still remained alive. You see that? So he didn't destroy everybody he was supposed to destroy. All right. So now, let's read on. So now it says, then the king's servant, which were in the king's gate said unto Mordecai, why transgressest thou the king's commandment? And now it came to pass when they spake daily unto him, and he hearkened not unto them, that that they told Haman to see whether Mordecai's matter would stand. He had told them that he was a Jew, so Haman had to tell them. You see that Mordecai had told those men that he was a Jew. So he's like, I'm a Jew. I'm not bowing down to him. You understand who my fathers were? We used to put these men to death. You see that? So then what happened? So it says, and when Haman saw that Mordecai bowed not, nor did him reverence, then was Haman full of wrath, right? So those men told him, like, Haman, check this out. You see that man right there? He not bowing to you. You need to do something about that. Let me see. So he walked before him. He didn't show no reverence or no praise or respect unto Haman. He's like he was angry, right? But now let's get Mordecai's reasoning on why he did not bow down to this Edomite, all right, this Amalekite. Let's get the reason why. Let's go back to the Esther in the Apocrypha, and let's get chapter 12. All right, let's get chapter 12. I believe it's chapter 12. Yeah, let's get chapter 12, and we'll pick it up. We'll pick it up at verse 1. And it says, and Mordecaius took his rest in the court of Gibthar and Thara, the two eunuchs of the king and the keepers of the palace, and he heard their devices and searched out their purpose and learned that they were about to lay hands upon uh, Artaxerxes the king, and so he certified the king to them. And the king examined the two eunuchs, and after that they had confessed it, that they were strangled. They were strangled. And the king made a record of these, and Mordecai also wrote thereof. So the king commanded Mordecai to serve in the court, and for this he was rewarded. Howbeit, Amon, the son of Amathus, the Agagite, who was in great honor with king, sought to molest Mordecai and his people because of the two eunuchs of the king, right? So remember, it was Haman's plan, right, to kill King Ahasuerus, all right? And he was going to have these two doorkeepers, man, do it for him. So remember, he was already at the chief seat, all right, up under the king. So now, if the king is dead, right, then he will assume position of leadership over the entire kingdom. All right. So remember, that's how Esau operates. All right. He's done that multiple times throughout history, man, where he's supplanted kings. Remember, through his knowledge and his wisdom, right, of certain things, right? Him being wise. Remember, it says that when you read in the book of Job that Eliphaz was a very wise man. You see that? So we just had to understand, man, Esau wasn't dumb. He was very smart, okay? And he was able to advance into these positions of power, man, in great seats of authority, to be number two. And then you bump off number one, then you become number one. You see that? And then you can get your men and your people to be in the positions of rulership. You see that? This is how he operated. And this is what we have to understand about this white man. All right, throughout history, he has used this tactic to assert many seats of authority and rulership throughout kingdoms. All right, so now let's read. Let's drop down and let's read. Let me see. That was just going to show about the account of the two eunuchs there. Let me see. So one I want with Mordecai, where he tells him he ain't nothing. He said two red dragons. Hold on one second, everybody. 1 second. Let me find it. Hold on 1 second. Let me get it. Do, 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 do. I think this is it right here. Let's read this. So this is in chapter 13, excuse me, chapter 13, and I'm going to read verse. I'm gonna start at uh verse 8. Then it says, then Mordecai thought upon all the works of the Lord and made his prayer unto him, saying, O Lord, Lord, the King Almighty, for the whole world is in thy power, and if thou hast appointed to save Israel, there is no man that can gainsay thee. For thou hast made heaven and earth and all the wondrous things under the heaven. Thou art Lord of all things, and there is no man that can resist thee, which art the Lord. Thou knowest all things, and thou knowest, Lord, that it was neither in contempt nor pride, nor for any desire of glory that I did not bow down to proud Ammon. Right. So look at that. This is what Mordecai said. This is the reason why he didn't bow down to who you would call Haman. All right. So Ammon is the Greek rendition of his name. So he says, Thou knowest all things, and thou knowest, Lord, that it was neither in contempt nor pride. So he said, I didn't do it in contempt, out of hatred. I didn't do it out of pride, nor for any desire of glory, that I did not bow down to proud Haman, right? So this is Mordecai's reason why he didn't bow to Haman. For I could not have been content with good will for the salvation of Israel to kiss the sole of his feet. So he said, I could have been content with goodwill for the salvation of Israel to kiss his man's feet. So I said, I could have kissed his behind, right? I could have kissed his feet, bow down to him. But what? But I did this because I prefer the glory of man above the glory of God. All right. So he said, I didn't do it for the glory of man, right? I preferred the glory of man I prefer not the glory of man above the glory of the Most High. So he chose the Most High, man. He said, I'm gonna bow down to the Most High. I'm not bowing down to man. You see that? Because remember, man can become idols too. All right. And this is what, uh Haman didn't understand. All right. So so now he says, Neither will I worship any but thee, O God, neither will I do it in pride. So he said he's not worshiping nobody else, all right, but the most high. And now, O Lord God and King, spare thy people for their eyes are upon us to bring us unto naught, to naught. Yea, they desire to destroy the inheritance that hath been thine from the beginning. Despise not the portion which thou hast delivered out of Egypt for thine own self. Hear my prayer and be merciful unto thine inheritance. Turn our sorrow into joy that we may live, O Lord. Praise thy name and destroy not the mouths of them that praise thee, O Lord. All Israel in like manner cried most earnestly unto the Lord, because their death was before their eyes. So they seen, man, their extermination, right before their very eyes. You see that? So you see, Mordecai didn't bow to Haman. He bowed to Haman. He didn't bow to Haman for a reason. He said, I did this because I wanted to show I prefer, to bow down to the Most High than to bow down to man. All right. Basically, plain and simple, man. He chose to bow down to the Most High, man, than bow down to some man. Okay. So he didn't do it in contempt. He didn't do it out of pride. He said he did it so that so that they know, man, that he worshiped the Most High. Okay. So that's what happened. So then you see that Haman, all right, he was full of rage. He was full of wrath when we go back to the book 3. Okay. So then he had sought to destroy the Jews from that point. So now I'm a right there. I'm going to close out right there, and we'll pick it up for the second day of Purim. All right. For the second day, we'll finish the complete story. So I just wanted just to bring a little bit out, dealing with Mordecai and dealing with Esther, just showing their mind state, man, and just how grateful we do have to be, man, because shoot, many of us could have been destroyed. We could have been those who were in captivity in Babylon or in Persia, man, that could have been very much destroyed. All right. So with that, I say shalom, kwam yasharala to the nation of Israel, so-called blacks, Hispanics, and Native Americans, and also shalom to the 12 tribes which are scattered abroad. I will see you tomorrow.